Well, welcome back to another episode of Pleasure Principles, the podcast where we unpack the messy, magical, and the magnificent world of intimacy, identity, and the self discovery. I'm your host, Avik, and today, dear listeners, we are popping the cork on some real talk because joining me is none other than Teresa Rosario. So, welcome to the show, Teresa.
Thank you so much for having me, Avik. I appreciate it.
Amazing, amazing. So, Teresa, like before we start, I'll quickly love to introduce you to all the listeners. Dear listeners, Teresa is a vibrant single mom, powerhouse podcaster, and the fabulous host of Prosecco Queens. So, she is the kind of woman who turns heartbreak into humor and chaos into confetti. Yes. So she survived relationship roller coasters, navigated single motherhood like a boss, and brings the kind of truth that uh, makes you laugh, cry, and raise your glass all at once. Yeah. So let's talk about the lessons behind the heartbreaks and the magic behind the mayhem and why sometimes the wildest love story is the one that we write with ourselves. So let's get into it. Welcome to the show again, Rosario.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful introduction. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Teresa, I have to say, like, you have been super candid about navigating relationship roller coasters. So, uh, yeah, and so from there, I'd love to ask you, like, what was the one pivotal moment, or maybe you remember a moment that cracked you wide open and shifted your entire perspective on the love?
It took me a while to figure this out, but I realized
Mhm,
was when I stopped pretending.
mhm,
I stopped pretending that other people are going to make me happy. Once I stopped pretending that I was the end all and the be all of other people's happiness
yeah.
as well, that no matter what I did was going
Mhm,
to make them change their minds, change themselves, change their perspectives. That was to me, and it took a lot of
mhm,
trauma and betrayal and drama to get to that place. And it took me a long time to have that acceptance. But yeah, once I stopped pretending, it's like
mhm,
it burst me wide open.
mm, understood. So, like, how did that moment influence the way that you show up right now, not just in the relationship, but in your everyday life?
You know, if you had told me a few years ago that I'd be sitting
Mhm.
here with you behind a mic and so my story to strangers, and that it would actually help people,
Mm,
I definitely would have laughed. I probably would have cried about it
okay.
because I didn't set out to become a podcast host or even a voice
Mhm,
for healing, whether it's men, women, families, generation.
mm,
I was just trying to survive, right? Just trying to, survive with a heartbreak I never saw coming in my life. And at the age I was, and with two kids, just like many women and many men out there. So to look back to that and see, even through the loss, the fight, the finding myself again process, which let's keep in mind is a constant journey. It's not a destination, it's a journey. Um, I think that that unraveling helps make you every day the person you want to be. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of introspection, which most of us don't have, and
mm,
people out there don't have. But right now, the person I am has accepted the outcome and has said, "Okay, I'm willing and ready to move on to the next phase, whatever that may look like."
understood. Okay. So, okay. And I have to say this. It's really wild, like how one crash can recalibrate your entire compass, like a kind of cosmic redirection. Like, uh, I think a lot of our listeners are wondering, like, is there life after the storm, or you are proof there absolutely is. So uh, that is something I really, really, wanted to share this. So
Well, Thank you. And there is.
Yeah.
There's like
Mm,
it's hard. Life,
mm,
especially these days, is not easy. It's very hard.
yeah.
And navigating through what to do next is, I think, the hardest. And there were moments of such bad denial
Mm,
that there was no movement forward. It was, I can't move. I can't even take a
yep.
step. And then there were other days where I just have to figure out what the next right thing is to do and just do that one thing at a time.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, many of us in the relationships were like way past their expiration date. Like, I mean, what finally made you say that that's it, I'm done? So, if you can share.
Well, in that, for that, I guess it depends on everybody's situation. All right. When it came to my situation, I knew I was done when I no longer saw myself.
Mm,
I knew I was done when I looked at myself in the mirror and I didn't
mm,
recognize myself, not physically, not mentally, emotionally, spiritually, which is a huge thing to me. When I
mm,
couldn't see where I started and where he began and vice
mm,
versa, I knew that was it for me. That was when I could no longer do this. And again, that was years of back and forth, of grief,
mm,
denial, of pain beyond anything in that respect I had been through before. So there's everybody has a different cutoff. Everybody says, there's one particular thing. There wasn't one particular thing for me. And when I look back, yeah, it was of course a culmination of thousands of things really over a decade. Uh, but at that time when you're in it, you don't have
mm,
the capacity to look forward or look back. You're only looking in that present. You're saying, well, right now it's not so bad. Right now I'm dealing with this. I look
exactly.
great. But hindsight is our
Mm,
biggest teacher. We can't go back and change it, but we can learn from it, and we always should.
mm, exactly. I mean, was it harder to leave or to rebuild your sense of self after leaving? I mean, yeah.
Well, it's actually both, right? Because
Okay.
when you finally get the clarity that you need and the space and the permission and the means to leave, because let's be honest, in the
Right.
real world, not everybody can just up and leave anything abusive, right? That's too
Right.
expensive to live on your own. You may have kids involved, like me. Really, all those things applied to me as well, right?
Mm,
My biggest fear was, how am I going to pay this rent by myself and all the utilities
yeah.
and our other bills, and I don't have the capacity to fight constantly to get money out of somebody and everything else. So
Mm,
realistically, the hardest part for me was letting go and leaving, or
mm,
making him leave. Once that happened, I realized, okay, now I have no choice. I can't sit in this
mm,
because no one else is going to take care of my kids. Now, not everybody has kids. God bless you. Oh my goodness.
yep.
Right. But regardless of whether you do or not, you still have your life to take care of.
Mm,
Rebuilding is hard because what you should be doing when you're rebuilding is really looking inside and saying, who am I? What am I lacking? What does my history teach me? What does my past
mm,
teach me? And how do I heal those pieces of me that continue to seek out validation from all of these people that
mm,
really are end up doing me harm? That is extremely hard. That takes a self awareness that most people don't have, including I
mhm.
didn't. But with the right amount of work, I'll say therapy. Some people, for me, therapy was beyond essential. For some people, it is, some people, it's not. Spiritual work, guidance. I mean, a life coach, as long as they're
Mm,
reputable, I'll say, because everybody can be a life coach these days.
mm,
I am not a life coach. I just have life. That's, that I've
yeah.
lived, and just being able to look into yourself. So rebuilding is very hard. Letting go and leaving, that's the one you really want to work up to, and do it as
Mm,
soon as you can if possible.
exactly. Wow. Hmm. That's the part people don't talk about enough, and like how lonely and freeing it all at once. It's like grieving and kind of rebirthing at the same time.
It is. And we don't talk about grieving the living very often. Of course, you grieve the dead, of course, because you don't see them anymore, right? And those are people that you
Mm,
love usually. When you have to be, again, I'll say in my perspective, a single parent, I still
mm,
have to have constant communication with the people that hurt me the most, the person that hurt me the most, right? I still have to try to find validation in other ways from them, not because I need it for myself, because I have to work through it with my kids. I have to make sure that my kids are safe around these individuals and the people that they're around, right? It's
mm,
still a fight to this day sometimes. I'm like, listen, that's not a good person. You're not going to have my kid around them. There's so many pieces of this that grief is not linear. Healing is not linear. You could be feeling
mm,
fine. And then something, anything can remind you of a situation, a person, a place, a thing, whatever. And then you're back to square one. So it's all about being able to find what grounds you to bring you
mm.
back because it does get easier as it goes longer, for real.
Understood. Yeah, definitely. And so let's talk about the identity. How did being raised in a questionable millennial upbringing shape your relationship patterns?
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't know what age range you fall into,
Okay.
but I can tell you
Uh-huh.
but I can even say probably culturally it was probably very, very similar where you almost raised yourself in a way, right? Like you had
Mhm.
parents and they were there for you. And, if you were lucky or you know what, to be honest with you, sometimes you're lucky if you don't have parents around. It really depends on the situation. But, in my case, it was a very old school upbringing that wasn't cuddly and
Mm,
lovey-dovey, I guess you could say for lack of a better term, right? It wasn't emotional, really, unless it was anger emotion. There wasn't a lot of cutesy stuff going on. But we had good parents. They supported
yeah.
us and they took care of us, and we didn't necessarily go without. We were very basic in what
Mm,
we had. But my parents did the best they could. But in that respect, sometimes things that are lacking are that emotion. I try
mm,
not to do that with my kids. I want them to have an emotional relationship with me because that is so utmost important when you are raising kids. So they feel that they have not just the backbone of how they can create relationships, but also how they can come to you. And the reality is, I never saw healthy relationships growing up.
yeah.
I was raised with intensity and fighting and screaming all the time. So when I got into any relationship, but especially my first heavy relationship, to me, whenever
Mhm.
we were fighting, it was normal. But when I look back, I'm like, oh my God, it was so toxic. But I was a kid and I didn't know. And then the second relationship, it wasn't even like that. It was very calm for a long time. And then it turned
Mm,
on its head. But at that point, I had already been so far in, I thought I could fix it. So
right.
there's that reality where we all think we can fix something or someone because we don't see any other way.
Mm,
Just not the case.
mm, got it. Mm. Ah, so I mean, did you ever have to unlearn love in order to actually understand what it is?
You know what I've learned? I've learned that real love,
Mhm. Mm,
whether from God, others, or myself, it should never require me to abandon who I am to be worthy of it. And I never did that. So after surviving betrayal and dealing with co parenting with someone who
mm,
is manipulative and lacks accountability and doesn't have a bad heart, but just wasn't raised, taking accountability, you know what I'm saying? And then learning to stand on my own. I now live by this. Boundaries are love. Peace is non
mm,
negotiable. And the relationship I have with myself will set the tone for everything else. And that's something that takes practice and time. And I am a
mm.
work in progress every single day.
That's amazing. Yeah. And if we also talk about like how do you think the dating apps or the social media affect like how we give and receive love today? I mean, I'd really love to hear your perspective, definitely.
Ooh, well, I'll tell you, those dating apps are. something
Yeah.
special.
Yeah.
um, I have such a positive and negative reaction with dating apps. I have not spent a lot of time on them, I'll be very honest. I've only ever been on one, and usually after one day on it, I'm off again. I'm like, I can't. And I try again for another 6 months later, and then I'm on maybe for 24 hours and I'm off again. Because it's too overwhelming. I had a dating coach on my show one time, and she was saying they gamify it. And when she
Okay.
said that, I said, "Oh my goodness, that's exactly the best way to describe it." It's an algorithm, right? They start to see the ones you're liking and disliking and selecting, and then they start to send you more like that. And it's overwhelming. You could be missing out on somebody great like that. I do sometimes miss going out and meeting somebody. But in a way, I also like laying in my bed and just just seeing what's out there. But so there is the catch-22 about it. The other thing that I found about it is that not everybody's I'm very honest. I do. I have a profile out there, and I'm very honest about who I am. And I'm not saying I don't need all this stuff from a man. I'm looking, this is who I am, and I know what I'll accept now and what I'll allow. And take it or leave it. We're gonna work together. If we have something going on, great. That's great. Let's be together. Let's work on it. But also, I think people need to be more honest on these dating apps. If you are looking just to hook up or just to, be with somebody for a night, say it. Stop making people think you want relationships when you really don't want a relationship. And that is so rampant out there. And you're just wasting everybody's time. There's something out there for everybody. Find out what it is you want and go and get it. But stop lying to everybody else. It's just a waste of time. There are some people out there really looking for genuine connections and want to find their person. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I guess I'll realize it when I get it.
Yeah. Amazing. That's really true. Yeah. Yeah. And lovely. And thank you so much for sharing that. And uh, I mean, I have to say, also, I have to say on this that there's so much performance in today's love language, but underneath it, we are all just craving the connection, like real, messy, and beautiful connection, like I mentioned in the beginning. Um, so yes, it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So finally, like, if you could speak to the version of you that that was still stuck on that emotional roller coaster, what would you say to her?
So if I could speak to myself back then, you mean?
Mm.
That's a good one. Um,
Yeah.
I guess I could say back then that not just you're gonna be okay, because everybody says that, you're gonna be fine. No, I think I would look back at that season of my life and the emotional roller coaster of it all. I would tell myself to take care of my mental health
Yep.
because that's not optional. That was
Mm.
survival. To make sure I focus on helping my children as well, because the reality is you can't help anybody else unless you help yourself first, and they are going to need you. Um, I would say continually, my therapy, my journaling, prayer, you know, take my long drives with music, whatever I needed to do. And
Yeah.
also that, life does go on. Healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who we are before the world taught us to play small.
Mm.
And that even in my lowest moments, I know I'm building something. So now every scar has a name and every lesson has a purpose. Yeah.
True. Wow. And like I mean, and what do you say to someone who is listening right now and who's stuck in their own ride or die chaos? What do you say them? Mm.
Um, so what I would say for someone who is really what you say when someone is really stuck in it right now
Yeah.
is that you're always going to be trying to figure it out.
Mm.
But do it loudly, do it
Mm.
proudly, because maybe, just maybe, someone else feels brave enough to do the same. You are not alone. There are men and women of every caliber on the planet,
Mm,
maybe not going through the same exact things, but having
mhm,
experiences of the same intensity. We feel sometimes that we are
mm,
so alone. And unfortunately, in those moments, sitting in that loneliness is the hardest thing to do. But sometimes also putting your face on and going to greet the world heals you far more than any other
mm.
thing you could do for yourself. Yeah.
So, that's amazing. Yeah, and so Teresa, like, I have to say, you are a force, and I can't thank you for bringing your bold and unfiltered and beautiful self to pleasure principles. And you actually reminded us that healing is never linear, but damn, it's liberating. So, thank you so much for sharing this.
Amen. Thank you so much for having me, Avik. I appreciate it. That's what I hope to get from any of this and to give to anybody as well.
Lovely, lovely. So, for all the listeners, if you are out there feeling lost in love, stuck in a cycle, or questioning your worth, hear this. You are not alone. You are not broken. You absolutely deserve joy, safety, and pleasure. For sure. And if this episode has stirred something in you, hit follow, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave us a little love also in the form of a review. So yeah, and so Teresa, if someone uh, like to connect with you, how they can connect?
Well, obviously, there's my podcast. I'm on a little bit of a hiatus for a while, but they can
Mhm,
always catch up on my 3 years of episodes. And that's
mhm,
Prosecco Queens Podcast on all
mhm,
podcasting sites. I also have, I'm on TikTok at Prosecco Queens Podcast. I'm on IG, Instagram
mhm,
at Prosecco Queens Podcast. I am right now, my website is under construction, but that is ProseccoQueensUnfiltered.com. So that's a work in progress. I'll be very proud of that. I'll be having a blog on there as well soon, and working on some other cool projects for the podcast as well. So when I'm able to come back, and yeah, also if anybody has any questions, comments, anything, I can be reached at Prosecco Queens Podcast at gmail.com.
mhm. Lovely. That's amazing. So, dear listeners, until next time, this is the host Avik reminding you that the real pleasure principle, it's not about perfection, it's about presence. Cheers to your healing. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.